Aromagees Botanica, a metaphysical store for mind, body, and spirit. Oils, herbs, candles, crystals, teas, handmade soaps, tarot cards, everything you need on your magical journey. Daily psychic and tarot readings, classes, witchcraft, pagan, and hoodoo supplies, most of it made in-house. Try our free Dress Your Own candle station. From spiritual gifts to ritual supplies to religious books, we have the widest selection of metaphysical products in all of Tennessee since 1999. It is our goal to inspire everyone to explore their spirituality in their own way by offering information and products in a nurturing multicultural environment. Open 7 days a week. 223 Donaldson Pike, Nashville, Tennessee, or visit us online at aromagees.com.
Oh, fire, fire, oh, fire, call fire department. Oh, wait, never mind. Fluffy says that it's he's smudging the house. Yep, smudging the house. He's been stressing how important it is to indulge in psychic hygiene. Yep, move that energy. Well, okay, I'm gonna go over here and chew on Fluffy's foot. I'm gonna go smudge the foot so it smells better, get rid of all that bad juju. You don't want his other foot to fall off. Remember, look us up on With the Fluff. Love ya. Bye. Ow.
We're here on Everyday Witchcraft, and we have a special guest, Cheryl Cotten. How are you doing today, Cheryl?
I am doing fabulous.
Thank you so much for coming on here. We're going to talk about a few things. We want to hear some stories. We want to get some information. So you were in on this path back in the 70s, right?
Yes, I started in 1974.
Oh, wow.
And I was initiated at Beltane of 74.
That's fantastic. What was that like?
Well, back then, of course, we didn't have the computers, internet, or anything. Everything was taught word of mouth. You had a mentor that worked with you and taught you. I wasn't allowed to take notes, write anything down. Everything was just voice, one-on-one. And we learned our spells. My very first spell was a love spell. I do not recommend it because it works. Uh, it was, I had to buy a flower bulb, a bulb that you plant in the ground. And then I had to buy a red planter and then my soil. I paid a penny for these from my mentor. Her name was Ruth. And she sold it to me for a penny because there has to be an exchange of some sort. And I took this bulb and I named it my boyfriend's name. I planted it. I watered it every day. I took care of it. And I would tell him I loved him. Well, this boy fell in love with me. And his name was Dale. And he was really my first boyfriend. And I was in the 9th grade in high school, and he was in the 11th grade. So he was a couple of years older than me. And this went on, this relationship went on for many, many years. We were just connected. Even after I had taken the spell apart, got rid of the bulbs, threw away the planter, everything, it still stuck.
Oh, wow.
And I had went on with other relationships. I got married. He got married. We went away. And it was still a connection. And it still went on probably 15, 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And before I finally got rid of him, I had to do a cord cutting spell to get rid of it because it worked. Unless you really know what you're doing, that is not a good spell to start with.
How did you find like a group to work with, to study with, a mentor, a teacher?
Okay. My mother worked with this lady. My mother was a night auditor at a Holiday Inn. This lady was bartender at night. And her and my mother became very, very good friends. And she knew this woman was a witch. And she knew I had a lot of questions that didn't go along with the Southern Baptist path that my mother was on. And so she asked her, she said, "Would you talk to my daughter? I think she's got questions that you can help her with that I can't." And so she introduced me, and Ruth said, "I would love to work with you, but let me ask my group first." And she was a member of a Gardnerian style coven in Gulfport, Mississippi. And so she talked with them, and she come back to me, and she said, "Okay, I can take you on." And so she took me on, and I studied with her. The coven said I could join. It was a coven you had to be 18 to be a member of, but they made an exception for me because my mother had recommended me. And so I was initiated into the coven. I was the 13th member of the coven. So it was very special.
Mm-hmm.
I later took off and did my own covens, but that was after a few years.
Mm-hmm. You went through the initiation process then. I know you can't really share details about the initiation process, but was it steps, the first degree, second degree, third degree, and then you hived off? Is it the same as that?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. You had to go through your degrees. And once you reach third degree, then you could hive off.
Right. And that's what you did. You hived off and formed your own.
Yes, I did. It took me about 5 or 6 years to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And during that time, like I said, there was no internet. You couldn't Google anything.
Mhm.
I couldn't write stuff down. I had to learn it by heart in my memory. And, that took a little time.
Oh yeah,
There,
absolutely. You were pretty young then, whenever you started your coven.
I was I was 14 when I started initiated in,
Hmm.
and I guess I was about 21 when I started my coven.
That's young. That's
I,
really young.
yeah, it is. It is. Uh, I was just real fortunate, real blessed, and now I'm 63, and I have got a lifetime of memories.
That's right. And knowledge to share. What would you what would you say is, like, to someone that's just coming into this world, this community? What kind of advice would you give them if they were seeking? Should they be solitary? Should they be in a coven? I guess back then, did they really have solitary practice? Because how would you, like you said, there's no internet. How would
No,
you?
there were no books on it or anything. You couldn't go get a book. Um, you really needed to study with a group.
Right.
I don't know how solitaire would work.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be difficult. What do you think is the best thing about? Let's talk about the pros and cons real quick. Just what is the positive coming out of the internet and things like that? Books.
Oh my gosh, the knowledge you can get a hold of. And some of it's not good. You
Right.
really have to weigh and measure what kind of information you're getting. But oh, the internet is so helpful. I use it all the time now.
What about the
And
cons?
and
What would you say is negative?
the garbage you get. There's so much garbage that is out there, and you really, if you're a new practitioner, you really don't know what's good or what's bad.
Right.
Uh, so there again, you need to be with a mentor or get with a group to help you figure it out.
Yeah. I would imagine, yeah, that it's, I guess there's probably mostly pros to it, positive things to it. But as
Yeah,
you said, it's
yeah,
hard to sift through, what is real, what isn't real, that kind of thing. And you said there wasn't really any books back then. Everything was
no,
word of mouth. So yeah,
yeah.
that would be difficult. You had to have a teacher or a mentor, to do it. What about spells again? Let's just talk about spells. Do you have any funny stories about something that you're able to share?
Well, there's this one story, this one spell. One of the first ones that I learned, and it was a money spell. And everybody wants a money spell. You got to get a hold of some money. Pagans are poor people, and yeah, we spend all of our money on crystals and books and tarot cards and bone pieces, and yeah, we blow our money. But this one money spell, I thought, okay, I can do this, and I won't be connected forever. And so you take a green candle, a little chime candle, or a birthday candle. Birthday candles work great in spells because you don't have to worry about all the leftover wax or leftover candle. You use it and it's gone. But you take a green candle and you dress it with some good oil, any kind of oil you want. I like to use holy oil or frankincense and myrrh oil, and you dress your candle, and then you light it. You set it up and you light it, and while it's lit, you take your right hand, and over the top, you rotate your hand around it. You do it 3 times. And during that time, you say, now this is the important part, orbiting Jupiter, trine the sun, bring me money on the run. And you say that 3 times as you rotate your hand. And it works. You're going to get money. But here's the key, you didn't specify how to get that money. So that money may come in a bad form. It could be a result of the death of somebody, and you get less money in the will. You really need to specify how to get that money. You can't just leave it up to the universe because there's no telling what'll happen. As it happened, I broke my leg. I had an insurance settlement. Brought me money, but it cost me.
Right.
So, you know, that's not necessarily a funny story, but it's an ironic
It's an
story.
ironic story. Intention is the main thing, with spell work, and being
Yes.
clear with what with what you need and what you want. Today we have stores where you can go and buy your crystals, buy your wands, buy your athame, buy your tarot cards. What would you do far back? How would you get
Well, I actually my mentor gave me a lot of stuff. Um, we had certain tools that we had to use. Um, through the coven, they told you this is what we have on our altar, and this is how our altar is set up. And we scrounged, we made do with a lot of stuff. We needed an athame. Sometimes we had to use a steak knife out of our knife block. We would use a piece of wood for our wand, a little branch. We used our fingertip for our wand. Your fingers, your hands are the most effective tools you have. And, we use that a lot of times. I have a mortar and pestle that my mentor gave me, and it's well over 125, 130 years old. I'm very careful with it these days because I don't want anything to happen to it. I want to be able to pass it down to somebody.
Right.
But she gave me that, and I use it on my altar, more in memory of her and in honor of her than anything else. But I have used it to crush herbs and stuff. That's its original intention. And so I've used it as that. But we would use a glass out of the cabinet for our water to hold on the altar. We made do with a lot of stuff.
Right. You had to, like you said, kind of scrounge around and get things. You said that your mentor gave you the tarot cards. What if somebody didn't have that access to tarot cards?
Well, then you didn't read tarot cards. That's just the way it was.
Wow.
Nowadays you can get them all over the place. People, I've heard a lot of young people say, "Well, I heard that you had to be gifted your tarot cards, your first deck, and all that." That's not necessarily true. That's just the way it happened back then.
Okay. That makes
A
sense.
lot of times, yeah, you would somebody would gift it to you because you didn't have access to get any.
That makes sense. What about festivals? I believe we met at POP. Is that correct? Yeah, we met at POP. So Pagan
Yes,
Unity,
we did.
what do you suggest for that to the newbie, the new person? Which festivals do you think are the ones to go to? I know Pagan Unity Festival definitely is. Are there any more you
Oh
can?
yeah, there's one that's held, and I forget what it's called. It's up in Kansas City, Missouri. Um, it's a big one. PSG, the Pagan Spirit Gathering one that Selena Fox runs. That's a big one that has a lot of wonderful people and interesting classes. Let's see, what else is there? Up in Salem, Massachusetts, Lori Cabot has a group up there. Uh, they have some great holiday festivals. Um, I moved up there, and I lived there for a year. And during that year, I learned a lot. This was back in 2001, I think 2002, in that time frame. And I was able to go to Beltane with Lori's group, and that was one of the most spiritual Beltanes I've attended since I was first initiated. I
Wow.
learned a lot at that Beltane.
I went to a chain that I learned a lot at as well when I was younger. And
Uh-huh.
maybe it's just something about belting. I don't know. But I had a spiritual awakening. I had two life changing experiences at it, and it was amazing. It was
Oh,
amazing.
wow. Good. You should come to ours sometime. We do Beltane here at the Knoll, and
Mhm.
we do it a 3-day camping thing, come it, and I try to have a lot of fun stuff,
That's
classes and workshops, and then our ritual, and of course after 9 p.m. it's no longer family friendly. That's adults only.
mhm.
And I won't say what goes on there, but whatever happens at the Knoll stays at the Knoll.
Okay. Okay. I would love to come there. That would be fantastic. That's
Yeah,
fabulous. Well, next year we'll just have to make that plan. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
awesome. Well, I don't know. What about what you're into? I know that you're a minister. Let's talk about that a little bit. How did you get into that?
I was taught, I was very interested in the ministry, a pagan ministry. I didn't want to do Christian, I wanted to do pagan, interfaith. And so I moved up to Independence, Kansas City, Missouri, and I started work at Silent Unity as a prayer minister. I took my training there, and I worked there overnight on the third shift. And you deal with a lot of people that are um, really reaching out. They're in a dire need, you know. And so I would counsel with them and pray with them in an interfaith manner. Uh, Unity, yeah, it's called Unity School of Christianity, but it was very metaphysical. And so I learned a lot of metaphysical things there. And this was in the late 90s, 99, I guess. And I was taught Reiki. Before Reiki, I did pranic healing, and that uses your own energy. It's very draining. Well, Reiki is not your energy, you're just a channel. And so I was taught Reiki and became a Reiki master teacher. And then I was ordained through this church, the Church of Healers. And so I did my ministry through that with my prayer ministry from Unity. And I just branched on out and became more and more interested and learned more. I became ordained through several different churches and organizations. In my Native American path, I became a medicine woman and traditional leader, which is the same as a minister. You have, you do weddings and whatnot, and you're legally ordained to do that in the Native path through the Native American Church. And I just gathered as much as I could. And we started our own church, Interfaith Fellowship of Spirit. We called it IFOS. And we've ordained several ministers from there. I've got a girl right now that I'm mentoring, and I plan on her taking over my ministry.
Yes, yes, that's fantastic. Do you have an opinion on the internet ordainment in comparison to having it done in person? What is your opinion about that?
I think the ordained ministers through the internet are fine and dandy. They don't necessarily hold up to the stringent laws of each state. In most states, it's okay. Tennessee, it's borderline. Tennessee became one of the states that required you to be ordained through a brick and mortar church. That's why we started our church here. So we would be a brick and mortar church that could ordain legally. Tennessee has had that overthrown now and are back to being able to marry through internet ordinations. But it could be thrown over again. So it's good to have a brick and mortar ordination in your past.
Right. That makes sense. If you were ordained through the internet and then they came out with a law saying that it had to be brick and mortar, would the people prior be grandfathered in, or do they lose that right? Do they lose that ordainment? I mean, how does that work? Do you know?
Well, it depends on how the law is written.
Okay.
Sometimes it makes you null and void. That brings up what happens to the people you married. Is their
Yeah.
marriage null and void? Um, it all depends on how that law is written. You need a lawyer to define it.
Someone who wants to go down that path of being a minister and getting ordained through brick and mortar, there's a process, I'm sure, that they would have to go through, studies, things like that. Whereas on the internet, you just get ordained. It's just that simple. You go and you get ordained. There's a process, though, to it, right, that you would recommend?
Yes, you need to study underneath another minister. At the very least, do some study, learn what is and isn't a marriage. I teach a class at the state of Tennessee. Their marriage license is very expensive. It's $107, I think. Uh, but if you take this class, it's a 4 hour premarital counseling workshop.
Right.
And if you take it, you save $60 on your marriage license. And I teach that. And it's 4 hours. You got to sit with this couple, go over all this good stuff about marriage. And I charge $40 for it because I value my time. My
Right.
time is worth something. And I give them a booklet that I make with all the stuff that we studied, and so they can refer back to it whenever. Um, I recommend that, and I'm teaching my new mentee. I've given her this book, and we're going over it, and I want her to be able to teach this class as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, you need to study under somebody.
Okay. Okay. You would need to go, though, to find a church like the one that you're talking about that you created, and then go to the brick and mortar, get a mentor or a teacher from there, and go through the process. But in saying that, it's not absolutely necessary to do that, but you recommend that. Is that right?
Yes, yes, I recommend it. Um, there is one online group. It's the American Marriage Ministries,
Uh-huh.
and they have a brick and mortar, and they ordain you over over the internet. They also do it as they go to different cities and set up different things. I received an ordination through them down in Nashville. They came to Nashville. They did a 1 day seminar. I went. You do a little class, and you get ordained. You can also get ordained online and not have the experience one on one, but you're
Right.
still fully ordained through a brick and mortar church.
Back, let's do the flashback again. Back in the 70s, was that even available to be a minister like in the pagan community? Was that even a thing back then?
No, no, not at all. That didn't start till probably Selena Fox. I would attribute it to her. She was the pioneer in so many things, and she's a wonderful woman. Uh, I've met her at Puff a couple of times. I've been able to sit with her and have dinner one on one. She is just a bank full of information.
She is. I met her at Puff as well. a couple of times, and it's just like when she walks, through, she's like the queen, and
Yes.
it's just, I mean, but she doesn't act like that. She doesn't act like that at all. She's so humble,
Yeah.
so sweet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just love her to death. I don't know her well, but like I said, I've met her a couple of times, and she's
Yeah.
beautiful. But you're beautiful too, Cheryl.
Oh,
You
thank you.
inspire
Thank
a
you.
lot of people. You inspired me, yet you came to my table to get your bones thrown, but yet it ended up being you inspiring me for so many things. And you do that for so many people. So many
Well,
people.
thank you. Thank you so much.
When you go in a
Yeah.
room, everybody's like, Cheryl there,
Like through
the
the
80s. What was it like through the 80s?
The 80s were good. They started coming out with stuff. Raymond Buckland, another wonderful inspiration in the witchcraft community. And I've met him, and I received permission from him to teach out of his book, The Complete Book of Witchcraft. That came out, oh gosh, I don't remember if it was the early 90s or the late 80s. I think the late 80s. And um, it's got a wonderful source of basic layouts, how to make a robe, how to make runes, how to set your altar up. Uh, just great information. And I teach out of it frequently. Of course, he's passed on, he's on the other side. And I feel like he's teaching us from the other side still. Um, but he was a big one. There was a publication. It was a little booklet, would come out every Sabbath. It was called The Crystal Well. And it started in the 70s. And I received it. My mentor, she received it in the mail. And she would sit down with me. She wouldn't let me have the booklet, but she would sit down with me at our meetings, and we would study that booklet and the different things that it taught. And when she passed on, right before she passed on, she gave me a box full of stuff. And in this stuff was a group of these little booklets,
Aw.
about 4 or 5 years worth of the Crystal Well. And I just cried when I saw it. I just cried. But
Aw.
later, there was a book published called The Crystal Well, Magical Rites of the Crystal Well. And it was by Ed Fitch. And I have that book. And of course, my copy is pretty old and ragged because I use it a lot. But it gives the rituals broke down, what your high priest and high priestess says, and really good rituals in that book. But that came about back then.
Is that still available to get now, or has it gone out of publication?
It's out of publication. You can get it online if you do a Google search, and you'll find it. Magical Rites of the Crystal Well, and there's some. I've ordered that book a couple times. If I needed somebody to have it, I would order it, and you can get them fairly cheap. And I've passed them on. I just recently donated a copy to one of our little local stores. Has a lending library, and so I donated a copy of it because I think it's important to have.
Right. I'll have to look into that. What was your first book that you ever got?
Oh, oh gosh, Amber K, True Magic, and it's also a very good one. I recommend it highly to new people. It's no longer in print, but you can order it and get it.
You can order it and get it. My first book, so I went down the witchy path, when I was like 14, but it wasn't anything serious. It was just like a little dabbling, which I know is dangerous now. But when I was 19, I got The Spiral Dance. That was my first book.
Oh yes, oh that's a great book. Yes, I have a couple of copies of it too.
I bet you have a pretty
Yeah,
good library.
I do. I do. I've got a lot of books.
you
That's
know,
one of my passions is
that's
books.
one of mine too. And I like the actual book. I mean, it's great to have an audio file or electronic version. Those are great, but I like to have like a hard copy of the
Yes,
book.
yes, me
Um,
too. I want to make notes in it,
I
and
know we
underline
know
it, highlight it. Yes,
that's exactly right. I want my handwriting in that book. I want my handwriting
yes.
in that book. Book of Shadows. Do what would you recommend to put in the Book of Shadows? I know I've got volumes now of my Book of Shadows. It started off, of course, with one spells, recipes, rituals, all this, my belief system, all these wonderful things. And then as
Yes.
I progressed and got more seasoned in the craft, I have volumes now. Is that how you do it, or do you just have your Book of Shadows for one particular thing like spells or rituals?
I started out with writing my spells, writing my rituals. Um, that was back in the 70s. And then later, I have went on for so many things, so many different paths I've explored. And I have got shelves of just notebooks,
Right.
spiral composition books, loose papers piled up. I had I did a Reiki workshop a few months ago, last year, I guess. And two of my Reiki students spent the night, stayed in my bedroom,
Mhm.
and they were talking to me about the Book of Shadows and stuff. And I laughed. I said, right there, those shelves is my Book of Shadows. And they said, okay, we need to change this. We need to come up here, organize this bedroom, and get your books published. Well, they still haven't done it. I need them to come do it, but they're so busy doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And you know them well. I'm not going to mention their name right now, but I'll tell you once we stop recording.
Okay.
But yeah, they're great girls. You love them too.
I do love that community. That Pagan Unity Festival community is just like family, open arms.
Yes,
And I
yes.
highly recommend that festival, especially if it's a first festival that you've ever been to. I
Oh yes,
really recommend that. I really.
yes.
I think
Yeah,
I've been there
Tisho
for
and his.
about 9 years. How long
Huh?
have you been going? How long have you been going to Puff? I've been there, I think, for about 9 years or 8 years, something like that. How long have you been going?
My first puff was in 2003. So I have been going a long time, 20 years. I've
Mhm.
got 20 years of puff experience. I didn't go every year because there's been times that I wasn't here. I moved away back to the coast. I'm from the Gulf Coast and I had to move home, take care of my mother for a few years. I came back. So I've missed a few festivals, but I'm a long term survivor of puff. I love it.
I do too. It's always so much fun, and like I said, the community there, it's like family. It really is. I love it, love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
love it. Well, back
Okay.
in the 70s, 80s, there was not as many paths of witchcraft, correct? I mean, you were limited to certain ones. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, there was the Gardnerian. Uh, the Gardnerian style, or that was a biggie. There was oh gosh, there was 3 or 4 different groups,
Right,
and you kind of fell in line with those. Um, there wasn't as much solitaire practice.
right,
There was
right,
no way to learn the stuff. So you based your belief system on what you learned,
right.
whatever group you learned from. Um, there just wasn't the availability then like there is now. And now, you've got your fairy covens, you got your crystal mine covens. There's just so many different ones.
Yeah, now it's endless on how many different.
Yeah, yeah, it
Well,
is.
I want to say thank you again. I'm so glad that I got to have you on here, and I know everybody is enjoying this, and they're going to want you back. So I love
Thank
you
you.
so much, so much.
I love you.
And we'll see you next time. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you.
On this segment of the show, I would like to take the opportunity to go over a little bit of bone magic. I've been asked a lot recently, how can I incorporate my bones into my magic practices? Now, I am a bone thrower, so naturally, this is something that I would do. Side note, I'm going to be teaching a class on it, a workshop at the Magic Market in Atlanta, Georgia on July 7th. So if you're in the area and you want to come by and see me, it's actually going to be a fantastic gathering. There's going to be a lot of workshops there offered, mine being one of them. So I encourage you to do just that. Bone magic. Let's see how we can incorporate using our bones, our bone collections, or if you're not even a bone thrower, how can you, bones that you have found or objects, things like that. When I use the term bones, it encompasses bones, seashells, and little curios or trinkets, because that's what we refer to in the bone throwing divination. So when I mention bones, it encompasses all of that. How can we incorporate these objects into our practice? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what you can do. What I personally would use them for, and then you can just either take it and use it exactly as I say, or take it and just kind of, refurbish it a little bit and make it your own. So I would like to start with the cowrie shells. Cowrie shells in bone divination are used to get yes and no answers to questions that you might have for the ancestors. You can use them in your everyday practice before doing a spell, a healing, any kind of magical working, or even a ritual that you are intending to do. Sometimes the gods or goddesses may not want you to work with them for your ritual. As I stated in a previous episode, you always divine prior to doing rituals. See if it's the right time to do that particular ritual. But that also applies to any kind of magical work, and you should always divine. This is an easy way to do that. You can use them not just to communicate with the ancestors, but also spirits, entities, deities. When you need to know, is this the right time? And do I have the right ingredients? Should I do this spell? You start off with 2 shells. Now, eventually you'll move up to 4 once you start connecting to the shells, but start off with 2. If you ask the question, and you'll ask it out loud while shaking your hand with the shells in it, if you ask the question, make sure it's in a yes or no format, blow on them and then throw them to get your answer. If you have 2 slit sides up or the face side up, your answer is yes. If you have 2 with the slit side or the face side down, your answer is no. If you get 1 of each, that means that whoever it is that you're communicating with wants you to reword the question or rephrase it, maybe give some more details. If you get a yes and a no answer 3 times in a row, that means that this is not the right time to do this working or this ritual, that you may need to kind of put it aside for just a little bit and then revisit it. You can also use cowrie shells as a form of an offering. In ancient times, cowrie shells were used just as that, as money. Personally, I like to give them as an offering when I'm or even payment whenever I'm working with like Hecate or Papa Legba. Anything that's associated with the underworld, I like to use the shells as payment for that. But also it's good as an offering and showing your appreciation. With your ancestors, cowrie shells are like a traditional piece to give as well as an offering. So you can use them to show your appreciation, or you can use them for actual payment for the working that you're about to do. The next piece I'd like to talk about is the buckeye. Buckeyes in bone divination are used to determine if you're in good health or bad health, or maybe foresee something coming. If the eye of the buckeye lands upright, that means bad health. But if the eye side lands down, that means good health. If it's on its side, that means that you need to kind of watch out, that health is going to become an issue if you don't take care of yourself or certain things for that outcome. You can use a buckeye in like a sachet. You can use it, stick it under your pillow with the eye side down, remember, because that's good health. But you can use it in the sachet along with herbs that are promote like good healing. For example, you would use lavender for calmness, chamomile for calmness. You can place the buckeye in with the eye side down and sprinkle some lavender or chamomile around it, and then tighten it where the eye side stays face down. You can put it under your pillow. You can carry it with you in your purse or your pocket, and that'll promote good health. Buckeyes are also good for money spells. Take the bill, either a dollar bill or a $5 bill or a $20 bill. The higher up in currency you go, the more wealth it will be brought to you. But you can take a bill and wrap it around the buckeye, fasten it with a rubber band or even tape, and put your intentions into that buckeye, and then carry it with you, and it will bring good fortune to you. Buckeyes are also known for good luck. Carry one in your pocket, as I said, put one underneath your pillow, and that'll promote good luck in certain areas of your life. Now we move on to beavers. Beavers represent basically being busy and working hard, and sometimes it can mean being overworked. So I use the beaver claw in my daily practice if I know I'm going to have a particularly crazy day and I'm going to be running around and I need to get a lot accomplished. I've made earrings out of them, and I wear them with the intention of setting out the day ready and prepared to do the things that I need to take care of. Bobcat bones. Bobcats are known to be sleek, they're fierce, they're sly, they're very intelligent creatures. The bobcat in bone divination represents like bad news coming. Like you are a prize to this bad news that's coming at you. You know what's going on. Nobody can get anything by you. I use bobcat bones to help me with a situation where I don't believe someone's being truthful, or I feel like someone has bad intentions toward me. I use the bobcat bone as a necklace or like in a sachet, or just carrying it with you in your pocket. I use that to make sure that I'm aware of someone's intention. Our next piece is the muskrat mandible. In bone throwing, muskrat mandibles are used for communication. If the smooth side is up, then that's good communication. If the smooth side is down, that's bad communication. So when you're using it in your craft, you can use it to improve communication between two individuals, whether that be you and someone else, or even a group of people, or two other people that you know that needs that improvement of communicating. You can use this bone in particular for that. You would take two of them or as many as is needed in the group, if it was like a family situation or something like that, and you would write each person's name on the smooth side of the mandible. Get a white candle and inscribe the names of the people, whether it be multiple names or just two. Inscribe their names onto the white candle. As you're burning the candle, do your working and your spell, while taking the two mandibles and lining them up with the white candle. As the candle burns down, so the communication improves.
I am going to show you a quick little way to make a dream sachet. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. We already know how to make a dream sachet. This is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have a little bit of a twist. So the first thing you'll need is a little bag to put it in. These little Gardanza bags you get at the Dollar Tree are perfect. You get a bunch of them for like $1.25. So yeah, you can start with that. Now I am going to put my stuff into a plastic Ziploc because I'm making these for a friend of mine that does massage therapy. So they're going to be for her clients. So they're going to go in the Ziploc and then into the little Gardanza bag. Now we're going to put the normal stuff in there. We're going to start with chamomile. Okay. Now everybody knows use chamomile for like its calming principles. And I'm going to put enough in there for like 2 sachets, I think. That way they can they can do the one and then do another one later, you know, pick back up with it. Anyway, so chamomile is good for like calming. You've probably heard of chamomile tea. So yeah, it's going to be a nice calming effect. Then you want to put lavender. Now I'm almost out of lavender, but I have enough for these. So you want to put just a little bit of that in there. I know these are all things you already automatically do, but of course we want the basics in there. The next herb, as I'm doing this, the next herb we're going to add is cinnamon. Now, here's my cinnamon. I don't know if you can see, there we go. So cinnamon is good for everything. It's good for protection. It's good for sleep. It's good for, I don't know, weight loss. It's good for nightmares. I don't know, it's good for a lot of stuff. Anyway, there's different types of cinnamon though. I didn't find this out until recently. And what I found out was there's a pure cinnamon, and then it was called a imitation cinnamon, which they're both the same. They're both edible. They're both fine. This is the regular cinnamon you get in the store, like a grocery store, and it's considered the imitation, the fake cinnamon, even though it's actually cinnamon. But the real cinnamon is a lot stronger, and like the bark is kind of flaked. So so yeah, you can get that. What I do is I make little breaks of it. See, about this big, and that's what I put in there. So now we have our chamomile for calming, we have our lavender for calming and restful sleep, and then we have our cinnamon for like protection. If somebody wanted to lose weight, you can mention that. Just, you know, all the different things cinnamon is good for. Now, here's where the twist comes. When I do chicken bones, when I process chicken bones, like I showed you in the book, I always have broken pieces. You know, you can't help that. So what I do is I put them in a little bag. And this bag is just full of a bunch of broken little pieces, like so, okay. This one's kind of big, but it's still broken. So yeah, don't throw them away, use them. So I use the bones to kind of prevent their thoughts from being scattered everywhere. You know how like racing thoughts, things like that when you try to lay down and sleep. So I'm actually going to put a chicken bone in here, like so. Okay, chicken bone. The next thing I'm going to put in, I have another bag that's got a bunch of buckeyes, okay, seashells and deer antler slices. So the deer antler slice would be used for, like, you know, if somebody lived in like a loud apartment building where it's like a lot of noise at night, that kind of thing, you would want to use the deer antler slice because it is for home and hearth. Now, if somebody just needed protection, of course, the seashell can be used for that. But what I'm going to use is the buckeye. And the reason why is because buckeyes are for mental health and physical health too. But anyway, mental health, I'm going to put that in there. And now I have the chamomile, I have the lavender, the cinnamon, the chicken bone, and the buckeye. Okay, I'm going to seal that up. And over it, I'm going to pray. Now, you'll want to call in the elements. You know, you'll call in north for like the area, the stability of having the good dreams. You'll want to call in the east, you know, whispering reassurance and things like that in their ear. The south would be the action, taking care of the situation, kicking out all these nasty negative thoughts. The west would be water, and that washes away like the negativity, or if it was the weight loss, you know, the overweight or the bad eating habits, washing away the negative energy, things like that. Then always don't forget to call in spirit, because that is the protector and the element that gives guidance. I also call in my ancestors because, as you know, I work with my ancestors all the time. So after that's all done, you call them in, you say your little prayer. It doesn't have to be anything special. You just pretty much want to reiterate what you're making the sachet for. And then, of course, you release the elements and the ancestors. You thank them all for being a part of it, and it's done.
We're back with Cheryl Cotten, and she's got recommendations on tarot cards. She's been reading for a very long time. How long have you been reading, Cheryl?
Well, the tarot itself, I've probably only been reading since the late 80s.
Late 80s.
Before that, I read playing cards.
That's
But,
amazing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. Well, what do you recommend as far as like cards for people? What decks do you recommend?
Okay, the very first deck I think everybody should have. You should learn it, learn all the ins and outs about it, the representations on the card, the layout. I recommend the Rider-Waite card. That should be your first deck. That was my first deck, and I had to learn it. Yeah,
that
the
was my
Rider-Waite.
first deck with the Rider-Waite.
Yeah, it's a great deck, and learn all the symbolism about it because it'll tell you the story, the Fool's Journey. Learn this Celtic Cross spread. It's a very good spread. It gives a lot of intricate information. Learn it, do it, practice it all the time. Get somebody to say, "Hey, I need to do a reading for you," and just set them down and practice. Do the readings, learn it, and then you can branch out to other decks.
Fantastic. I agree with that 100%. The Rider-Waite 100%. But it's nice to hear validation from you because you've been doing it for so long. Well, I'm going to thank you again, and thank you for doing that little recommendation. I know the viewers like, people that are very knowledgeable in the craft. They like to hear, what is it you think, that they need to start with. Once again, I'm going to thank you, and I will see you next time. Blessed be.
It's ready to go. So
this next segment of the show is called Dear Atalanta, and it's when I have my viewers write in for me to answer questions that they have about witchcraft. So you can write in at atalanta@bonewitch.com. That's ATALANTA@bonewitch.com. But I invite you all to please definitely write in. I've got 2 short questions for today. The first one, Dear Atalanta, does the pentagram represent evil? The pentagram or the pentacle, neither represents evil. Matter of fact, they represent protection in the craft. Protection. So a lot of people associate them with evil because that's what Hollywood has made us to believe and think, but no, they represent protection. Now, the elements are what protects us, and the 5 elements that we have are earth, air, fire, water, spirit. So each point represents a different element, and altogether it represents protection. The next question is, Dear Atalanta, what is a fun fact that we do not know about witches? Okay, I got one. Fun fact about witches. We all know that witches love purple. That is our color. Well, have you ever driven by a house in a neighborhood and seen a purple door painted on a house? More than likely a witch lives there. That's one way we can identify where witches live in a neighborhood, is a purple door. Where it got started and why it got started, I have no idea. But that is a fun fact about witches. Thank you all for watching and writing in. And I ask you once again, if you would love to write in, I would love to answer your questions. That's atalanta@bonewitch.com. Thank you.
I'm going to give you one of my tips to keep my drive safe. So here we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle just a little bit of water on each tire. We're going to walk around the car in a clockwise motion, asking Goddess to please guard us from any accidents or breakdown. We use water because it replenishes our vehicle and it washes away any negativity. So it's the perfect element to do so. Complete the circle. Goddess, please keep us safe from any breakdowns and any accidents. And so mote it be. So it's as simple as that. Free from any breakdowns, free from any accidents, and there you go.
I will see you in a couple weeks. Blessed be.